Welcome, tankers, to the conclusion of the Ground Nation Guide for War Thunder. In this final episode, we'll do a summary of all the previous videos in the series, discussing the playstyles and rankings of each nation and giving a definitive answer to the question of whether you should play them or not. Once again, the full playlist is in the description. First, let's take a look at playstyles, starting with flanking. Nations like the US and Italy put a big emphasis on flanking throughout their tree, with a large portion of their vehicles being fast tanks with good firepower. In the middle of the list, we have countries that don't focus too heavily on flanking, but might have a dedicated light tank line or decent mobility on most of their tanks. For sniping, nations like Germany and Britain have their entire trees built around powerful and accurate guns. The majority of their tree is focused on staying back and picking enemies off from afar. Countries below them can perform well enough when sniping, but they're not too focused on the playstyle. For Brawling, we're mainly focusing on thick armor, fast reload rates, and survivability. Nations like the US and USSR have great tanks like the Jumbo or KV-1 that fit into this role quite well. Below them, we have countries that might have good armor or fast guns, but aren't specifically built for close-range combat, or they perform better in other roles like sniping. And lastly, for supporting, the bar is pretty low. We're looking for tanks with adequate mobility and decent firepower. Basically just jacks of all trades that stay behind their heavier allies. Pretty much any nation can support, but some can do it better than others. Now for the ranks. The early tiers are mostly dominated by the big three, while some of the minor nations are a bit of a struggle. As we climb the ranks to the mid tiers, the most popular nations are at the top once again, but a couple of outliers begin to appear. Once we get to the higher ranks though, the list is a lot more diverse, with some nations finally getting their moment to shine. As for top tier, the list gets pretty competitive. The big three are at the top as you'd expect, but other nations like Sweden and China really show their potential with their MBTs. Now, for one last time, should you play these countries? If you're a beginner, here's a list. At the very top, we have nations that are really easy to start with. Their early tanks are simple to use and understand, and they don't require any previous experience to get going with. As you climb their ranks, they'll have tanks that are adaptable to different roles, and will teach you the basics of some playstyles. Nations around the middle are a bit less foolproof. They either have early tiers that are somewhat challenging, or have setbacks that make it harder for newer players to get used to, like solid shot ammunition, bad mobility, or weak armor. And at the very bottom of the barrel, you have nations that only experienced players can work with. Their early tiers are trash, they require specific playstyles and map knowledge to use effectively, and climbing their ranks is rather difficult. If you're a beginner, it's not recommended to start with any of these, even if you are from those countries. If you're looking for a new nation to grind though, the list looks a bit different. The countries at the top contain some really unique vehicles, limited to no copy paste, and have reasonable grinds to top tier. You can't find tanks like theirs easily, and you'll have a fresh experience while grinding. Once you get to their top tier, you'll be rewarded with some great vehicles as well. Countries in the middle are mixed bags. On one hand, they contain a good amount of copy paste, or maybe their vehicles aren't anything too special, but on the other hand, they might have some hidden gems that are worth grinding, or maybe their top tier is especially noteworthy. This depends from nation to nation, so check out their respective episodes to learn why. At the bottom of the list though, we have countries that are pretty much entirely copy and paste, except for their top tier maybe. There is a caveat though. For example, the Chinese tree will definitely be repetitive for those who have played the American and or the Soviet trees, but for players who haven't played either, it'll actually be a great chance to try both of them out. On top of that, they also have some interesting top tier vehicles as well, so use your own discretion. Lastly, if you're looking to have some fun, here's a list. Obviously, this will depend from person to person, but in my opinion, the countries at the top have really fun tanks across their entire tree. Instead of the usual sniping or supporting, vehicles of these countries spice things up with unique playstyles and unorthodox designs. In the middle of the list, we have nations that have a couple of interesting vehicles but are mostly the same. I didn't put many countries at the bottom since the list is highly subjective, but nations down here have limited playstyles or are very monotonous. And that about wraps it up. If you're still unsure of which nation to pick, think about some of your favorite playstyles and compare the lists in the video. For example, if you're an experienced player looking for a fun grind with tanks to snipe with, Germany would be the natural pick. If you're a beginner with no clue as to what you want to play though, countries like the USA offer a variety of playstyles to choose from, and other nations like China have a mix of some of the most popular tanks in the game. Think about how you want to play and what you're looking for in a tree. And with that, the Reforged Ground Nation guide comes to a close. Hopefully you all enjoyed it and learned about the different countries in the game. Special thanks goes to the review team for helping out. If you're wondering about the Air Nation guide, I am planning on a remake given all the changes since the upload, but it probably won't be a completely fresh series like this one. There will probably be some reused footage or parts of the script, but I'll give them a fresh voiceover and include some up-to-date information. Gaijin said Gen 5 aircraft will be released sometime next year, so I'll wait until then. In the meantime, I'm planning on releasing yearly updates for this series just to recap on the new vehicles and changes to tech trees. Other than that, thanks for watching and expect a variety of other content in the near future. I'll see you in the next video.